Right, well, let's unpack the story further. Joining us is a political analyst from Durban University of Technology, Dr. Imraan Buccus. It's a great pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming on. Were you surprised by Francois Rodgers and his very public appeal to his party on national level? Would you have reckoned that those kinds of discussions would take place behind closed doors, and perhaps that the DA might prefer that they take place behind closed doors?
Thanks, Michelle. Just to correct you, University of Free State now. Not too serious, but I thought I'd make that correction. Maybe I'd start by saying, coalitions are always contested terrain. And I think in South Africa, particularly, this is really new for us. We don't come from a history of coalitions, bar what we talk about in 1994. The other point to make is, having heard what Rodgers said, the reality is that national often acts as a framework for provincial. Yes, there might be some cohesion in KZN, but KZN is also really fractured. Besides being ideologically diverse, I think there are huge concerns about intra-ANC politics. There are concerns about possible MK sleeper cells within the ANC. So I think despite this kind of facade of working cohesively, there are, of course, a range of fragmentations within the province. But you are right, and I think Rodgers is right. There is a need to, despite these differences, work together in the interests of the GPU and certainly in the interests of the GNU.
Right. But what happens in the Government of National Unity, Dr. Buccus, will surely trickle down to the various provinces, right? I mean, can a government of provincial unity even exist outside of a government of national unity if that does fall apart?
Yeah, well, there's no rule and it's not cast in stone, but yes, you're absolutely right. I think national does act as a framework for provincial. I think the balance of forces nationally are considering all of the dynamics. The ANC needs to take into account the way it moves forward in terms of coalition partners and what impact that has on the ANC's electorate in 2026 and indeed in 2029. At the same time, it needs to reconcile that with the way markets are reacting, with the way big business is reacting. Of course, they would prefer, the DA that's more market-friendly and neoliberal to remain in power. And at the same time, the ANC is not ideologically cohesive. It talks of being a broad church. I'm not sure how sort of relevant that might be for a post-apartheid order, but it certainly is, and remains ideologically diverse. So yes, you're right. I think the national does impact provincial. And if you think about KZN, if the Democratic Alliance were to be ousted from the GPU, they certainly would be out in the cold, and I think would be politically isolated from contributing to any sort of meaningful governance in KZN.
Yeah. I mean, there is clearly a desire from the DA, as we've just heard now from Francois Rodgers, but also the IFP to keep the GNU intact.
Of course, they've had, recent squabbles recently, the IFP and DA, but they also have a history of cohering, of working together. So I think both these parties have a good sense of the balance of forces in KZN. They have a good sense of what could happen if the MK party were to, assume leadership in KZN. We know despite the 45%, one certainly doesn't have a clear policy sense of the MK. What we do know about the MK is that there's constant infighting, and that infighting is often linked to the looting of the public purse. And I think, of course, amongst various segments of society, including in academia, the point is often made that in post-colonial societies like ours, we need to be always wary of this fine line between the state and the underworld. We've heard about the construction mafia in KZN. We've heard about the levels of corruption within MK. So I think the DA and IFP are very wary of this and wary of what could happen if this provincial government were to fragment.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of a small-scale version, well, not small-scale to us living in South Africa, but it's a version of the trade war unfolding between the US and China, right? Who's going to move first between the DA and the ANC insofar as the GNU is concerned? The ANC says it's, as you say, a broad church. It's speaking to everyone. It might be in conversation with a whole range of parties should the DA decide to leave, but it will not tell the DA to leave. The DA, as we know, over the past 9 months, has at every turn threatened to either leave the GNU or made statements saying that the GNU is in question for various reasons. There has to be a grown-up in the room here, Dr. Buccus. Who will it be?
Well, Helen Zille said at the very outset that she would have preferred oppositional politics or being in the opposition. I think now, being in government, the DA realizes with having several ministries, I think it's 6, the importance and the gravitas that comes with playing a political role at that level. I think at the same time, the DA perhaps overestimates its political capital in the way it plays the chess game with the ANC. The ANC, from its history, perhaps in 1912 and perhaps post 69 at Morogoro, has an amazing capacity to mobilize and demobilize. So, essentially the point I'm making is the ANC has far greater capacity of playing this game than the DA. And I think the DA often misreads the political chessboard. And of course, one needs to reconcile that with the kind of power the DA has in terms of its appeal to market forces in the business sector.
Dr. Imraan Buccus, a great pleasure talking to you. Thanks for giving us your perspective. Dr. Buccus is a political analyst with the University of the Free State as we continue to monitor these talks.